today to celebrate the Disability Empowerment Month. Our speakers today will be talking to us about how they empower our people with disabilities every day. But before we start our event and presentation, I just want to read the land acknowledgement. Paradise Valley Community College is located on the traditional lands of the Akamil O'odham, Pima, Pipash, Maricopa, and Yavapai people. There are 22 federally recognized tribes in Arizona and 574 across the United States. We acknowledge the painful history of genocide and forced removal from this territory, and we honor and respect the many diverse Indigenous people still connected to this land on which we gather. Without them, we would not have access to our education or the land we live, work, learn, and commune on. We take this opportunity to thank the original caretakers of this land. We offer our respect to their elders and to all the Indigenous people of the past, present, and future. Our first speaker today is Daryl. Daryl is joining us today from Ability 360. Daryl, over the past 3 decades, Mr. Christensen has been professionally employed at 2 centers for independent living, assisting persons with disability to be more independent and integrated in their community of choice, as well as advocating for a more accessible society. For over 24 years, he has been the Vice President of Community Integration for Ability 360 in Phoenix, Arizona, where he oversees 10 programs at one of the largest centers for independent living nationwide with an operating budget of over $48 million this year. Prior to moving to Arizona, he was a program outreach coordinator for nearly 12 years at the Southeastern Minnesota Center for Independent Living, based in Rochester, Minnesota, opening 3 branch offices in rural Minnesota. Mr. Christensen was elected treasurer for the National Council on Independent Living Board of Directors for 2017-2019, serving on the board for a total of 7 years. He also co-chaired the NCIL Housing Subcommittee for 14 years, addressing national issues of increasing and promoting accessibility in all housing nationally. Mr. Christensen earned a Master's of Science degree in Guidance and Counseling from the University of Wisconsin staff, as well as earning a double major in Psychology and Sociology from the University of Minnesota, Mankato. Let's all welcome Mr. Christensen here and give him a warm applause.
Thanks, everybody, not only in person, but virtually. Just for a point of clarification, do we have just until 1 o'clock or?
Yes, 1 o'clock we'll have.
Okay. I was just doing a time check. Okay. Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. I'm really glad to be here. And I hope that time together will be helpful for you in your daily life, in your professional, personal, overall life. What I've labeled this afternoon to be is disability awareness and etiquette. Why should I even care? So often I get people who say, well, I've seen a couple of people using wheelchairs, but, folks with disabilities are, not really prevalent in the community. I'm here to share that that's not the case. So our learning objectives is talking about the demographics of folks with disabilities, defining the people first language, which is really important. And if there's nothing else that comes out of our time together, I want to talk about or make sure that you understand person first language, identifying first language. Also 3, to identify various disabilities and understanding basic etiquette rules and guidelines for accessibility and accommodations. And then hopefully I'll have a few minutes left over for questions and answers. So here's our campus, 50th Street in Washington. We've been there now for 14 years. We actually opened this campus 2 months before the light rail system. So it's been since 2008 already. So our mission as a center is advocacy, independence, and equality. What I've done also is pass out to the folks in person our main brochure outlining all of our programs. Those of you who are joining us virtually can just go to ability360.org and you'll have a full outlay of what we do. Part of the programming includes advocacy on all levels. The Americans with Disabilities Act. It's now 32 years since the law was passed in for us. Independent living skills, early intervention, talking to folks up in the rehab centers, and a number of other things that I know that you can read and see, and we'll have in the brochure. So the awareness, culture, and etiquette for full inclusion and empowerment. And this is to develop a professional understanding of the disability language, the etiquette skills. I just want to say that, let's see, I think, okay, yeah. So let's go into the definition first here of what a disability is. So it's the difference between that maybe physical, cognitive, mental, psychiatric, sensory, like hearing and vision, developmental disabilities, or some combination thereof from birth or acquired in a person's lifetime. And we like to say that becoming a person with a disability is an equal opportunity club. Anybody can join at any time. For myself, I was born without my right arm, totally blind in my right eye. And so that's been my story for a number of years. And with the medicine that we have available, more and more kids being born are surviving, whereas back in the Stone Age, when I was born, it wasn't as likely. Midlife crisis. Maybe you, God forbid, get on the Highway 51 and get into a car wreck, spinal cord injury, you become paraplegic or quadriplegic, a brain injury, whatever it might be. Or you go to your doctor's office and they say, welcome this morning. New diagnosis after test is that you have some type of disability. And if that doesn't happen, Mother Nature kicks in. I love talking to seniors because they say, I ask them, are you a senior? How are the people? I'm 85. I've earned it. I'm an older adult. That's right. You have a disability? Nope. How's your hearing? What's that? And any arthritis? Nope. Just during monsoon season, but I don't have a disability. And we'll talk about some of those reasons why there's such a negative stereotype. So, Equal Opportunity Club, anybody can join anytime. So under the ADA, it's not American Dental Association or American Dairy Association. For this purpose, it's the Americans with Disabilities Act. It's someone who has a condition that substantially limits one or more major life activity, walking, talking, breathing, and such. It is not inclusive of just minor corrective vision with eyeglasses, something that substantially limits, then you become qualified. And let's see if I have this in here. So yeah, the reality is that we're just like anybody else. People with or without disabilities, we have our challenges and barriers in life. And for those of us with disabilities, lack of affordable, accessible housing is a huge problem. Now, I know that everybody participating on this call knows about the prices and availability of housing. The affordability piece is just outlandish, right? That's why you have roommates to cut down and be able to afford to live out there. Plus, someone who needs accessible features, maybe a ramp, maybe grab bars, maybe a high-rise toilet. It could be a roll-in shower. Getting those types of units that are accessible are very difficult in addition to the affordability piece. Caregivers, someone coming into the home, maybe getting you up and ready for the day, showered, dressed, and then that person's on their way for the rest of the day. That caregiver comes back in at night and gets them ready for the evening. Equipment and assistive technology. There's no better time to have a disability than today because we have so much technology available to us. A lot of the things that you've used on your smartphone were developed for folks with different types of disabilities. And you all get to benefit from it. Accessible, affordable transportation. I would really say that, and then the higher unemployment rate. I would offer to you 3 reasons why it's so difficult for folks with disabilities to live in the community. One is that housing issue. Two is the transportation. And three is employment. I can tell you with displeasure, I guess, about the unemployment rate. So this is pre and post COVID numbers that I'll tell you. The unemployment rate nationally here is about 3 or 4%. Pretty low. The unemployment rate among those who are of a minority status, 13 to 15% unemployed. Among people with disabilities is, here's the audience participation part. What do you think the unemployment rate is among people with disabilities? 26.
65.
65. Anybody else? Come on. I'm sorry? 45. 58% unemployed. Remember, nationally we're at 3 or 4%. And already in the teens. We're looking at 68% unemployment. And there's mornings, ladies and gentlemen, where I wake up and I think, what makes me so statistically special that I'm employed full time? I'm not that special. But statistically, with the employment piece, I am. And that needs to substantial improvement in this nation. When we talk about the demographics, what are we looking at even? Right now, not only nationally, but in Arizona as well, we have about 1 in 5. 1 in 5 people are individuals with disabilities. 1 in 5. So you break that down nationally, and we have about 61 million Americans who have a permanent disability. Very soon, in the next 10, 15 years, that number is going to change to 1 in 4. 1 in 4 Americans will have a permanent disability as defined earlier here. It's not just a niche population. So if you look at from a business standpoint, this is really important from a business standpoint, because I'll tell you, my money is just as green as anybody else's. As a person with a disability, I can tell my friends and family, go there, have your pizza at this establishment, because they're welcoming, they're accessible, and their staff gets it. Or I can say, you know what? Don't waste your time going over to that pizza place, because it's horrible. You can't get in the door. You have tight passage, and the staff just don't get it. Money speaks, and so that's really important when we look at 1 in 5 and soon 1 in 4 Americans. And right here in the Valley, let's translate that. Right here in the Valley, we have nearly 1 million Valley residents who have a permanent disability. It could be yourself, it could be a family member, your grandparents, whatever. And as I said, it can happen anytime. It's not like, you woke up this morning, like, okay, it's Wednesday, October 12th, and I have a meeting at noon, and then I think I'm going to go get me a disability. You don't plan for it, but it can happen. So as professionals, we must be prepared to work with people with disabilities that's empowering, respectful, and promotes independence. Independence is what this nation was built on. Freedoms and rights. And just because someone has a disability, those rights should not be taken away. The independent living philosophy, and for our agency and others like us, it's worth looking at strength-based. So often you go into a doctor's appointment and they'll say, needs help with this, needs help with that, can't do this, blah, blah, blah. Okay, but let's flip it and say, look, let's build on the strengths and abilities that you do have. The philosophy is person-centered, meaning this is my life. voices in my life and decisions. So often the medical model says, as a doctor or a medical person, your teachers, others, for your son. Son, what he wants. Oh, you don't know anything. You're just the parent or you're just the patient. Excuse me? And so we're saying, look, these are our decisions. Let's make them on our own. And it's a natural part of the human experience. And it's also looked at as a social justice model rather than a medical model. It's, when we talk about the civil rights, the Americans with Disabilities is that. It's civil rights. And so often people say, well, we took care of civil rights in the 60s, didn't we, with the Civil Rights Amendment in 1964? Built on those civil rights. And what happened was that from folks of ethnic and racial backgrounds were getting more rights in 64. In the 70s, women's rights became more prevalent and gained more rights there. And then in the 80s and 90s, people with disabilities built again and so forth. So that's the philosophy. We believe that the opportunity to fully participate in all aspects is essential, and that it's often a lack of access and accommodation that limits functioning, not the disabling a person from it. There is no normal. Sorry, folks, there is no normal. But I think there's a normal Oklahoma. Is there a normal? Otherwise, there's no normal. Everybody's different. When I go to the grocery store, and maybe I've had a rough day, I just want to go in, get my gallon of milk, and get out of there. Some young child, 4 years old, being held by the hand with mom, and child says, "Hey, mommy, what happened to that man's arm? What happened to mom's arm?" And they're like pulling him along, don't be asking questions, and don't be. And like more times than not, my personal story and my personal choice, I'll take a moment to answer that child's question. I'm probably going to be the first person that they come across with a visible disability. And so I will take a moment usually and say, you know what? This is the way I was born. It's okay. Wouldn't it be boring if we all looked like mom? If everybody in the world looked like mom? We couldn't tell who's who. But it's cool because we all have different colored eyes, different colored skin, different colored hair. That's the cool part. You were born with 2 arms. I was born with 1. Okay, it's a good thing. They're like, oh, okay. And they're on their way. And the mom says, thanks, I really appreciate it. Because I answered her question too, what happened to my arm? But the kids are just more free to ask, no big deal. Now, some people with disabilities, it may be new to them, and they're really PO'd at the world. They are upset and angry and resentful for what life threw at them. That person is different from me, and they have a right not to answer the question. Everybody's different. So we look at ability as on a continuum. That living philosophy addresses our own barriers and social, creates community versus isolation and segregation. So once we acknowledge those fears and biases that we carry about differences, we must recognize those in our society. We had a theater company, Theater 360, and this we performed at the Herberger at Lunchtime Theater and around the community. And this one had a number of different labels. There was like disabled and retard and just ugly old terms. And actually the real label is person. So, and these are all actors with disabilities. They write their own scripts. It's pretty cool. So people first language. I talked about this being really important for our time together. I just don't want you coming out of here thinking, what's politically correct this week? Because I sure as anything don't want to say something wrong or say something inappropriate that somebody on social media is going to blast me about. Folks with disabilities, the best rule of thumb is a person first. A person with a mobility impairment, a person with a limb loss, a person who has cerebral palsy, a person who's deaf or hard of hearing, right? Because if I asked every one of us in the room and on the virtual, if you could think of one word, one adjective that describes the essence of who you are as a person, I don't know your names, if you can think of one word that defines the essence of who you are, what would that one word be? Audience participation part. Come on. Others, come on. This is your presentation time too. It's not just all about me. Come on. Unique. Individual. Alive. Isn't it? Did any of you have as your label in your top 5 able-bodied, temporarily able-bodied? And why should I have to walk in this room with perceived label of handicap, disabled? Shouldn't have to, just like it didn't come to your top of your 5. I can tell you honestly again, folks, I'm a husband, I'm a brother, I'm an uncle, I'm a son, I'm a parishioner, I'm a neighbor, friend, I'm a coworker, a boss. And oh, by the way, I happen to have a disability. Listen, first language. It's easy to pick up. It really is. Back when I was in college, raised in Minnesota, we went down for spring break to South Padre Island in Texas. Done for the week, something fun, right? Get away from the blizzards. I came back 1 week later and I said, y'all have a good time when I was gone? Did I say that? Norwegian people from the Midwest don't say y'all. We just don't. But in 1 week's time, I was surrounded by people who said y'all. 1 week's time is all it took for me to capture and learn that vernacular. So therefore, my example is to you, be a barrier buster. When you start to use person first language, others around you are going to change because it reflects attitudes, quite frankly. Words reflect attitudes. We have so much division in this country right now, it's unbelievable. But if we can look at a common denominator that we're person first, then a lot of things change. Because back in the day, the N-word just rolled off people's tongues, right? Like, oh, yeah, N-word just rolled off people's tongues. Didn't think about it. Well, you know what? Saying if
Good job. Watch out, Kelly. Okay, get in.
when you're working with
Careful, careful. Okay.
terms that we have, retard. An invalid basically says you're an invalid human being. Well, it's cat in hand, baby. Well, there's something to rise up to, right? You get a degree and you become handicapped, burden on society. It's not accurate, so toss that word out. Disabled, in the newspapers, the media, it's quicker and easier to say disabled guy, the disabled, not able. The ones that really raise the hair in the back of my neck are wheelchair bound and professionals who have social work degrees, years of experience, still write on their referrals, wheelchair bound. The group again, audience participation. Have you ever seen anybody bound, chained, and locked to a wheelchair, 365, 7 days a week, 365? Anybody? Raise hands. Right. That's an inaccurate term about wheelchair bound. Throw that out of your vocabulary. Go down the list, but none of them are really accurate. So person first. I'm really rocking the point. Okay. So here's a couple examples. Adults with disabilities, not handicap. He has a cognitive or intellectual disability, not he's retarded and mentally retarded. She uses a wheelchair, not she's confined to a chair or bound. Or a wheelchair person. A wheelchair person. I saw a wheelchair person in the grocery store today. Really? Did you see rubber and metal as a wheelchair person? Or did you see skin and bones and flesh? Wheelchair person, what the heck? Also, the words we use about mobility devices. People do not use electric chairs for their navigation. Electric chairs, you know what I'm talking about, right? No, you don't. Electric chairs are what they use in Texas to kill people at the end of life for offenses. That, my friends, is an electric chair. Someone using a wheelchair, manual or power, to navigate and get around, that is a wheelchair. Even the power wheelchairs are used for mobility. They are not electric chairs. So don't feel like you have to walk out of here on pins and needles. That's not what I'm saying. Person first language is all I'm talking about. Rather than going through the rest of these, here's a good one. Ask people what they prefer. And the cartoon says, so what do you prefer to be called? Handicapped? Disabled? Physically challenged? The guy responds with saying, no, Joe would be fine. Yeah, most appropriate label is usually the one that their parents gave them. So we're turning our attention now to general etiquette. People work and our parents are full, satisfying lives. Don't make assumptions based on experiences you've had with others with the same diagnosis. Everybody's different. Appreciate and emphasize what they can do and follow their lead. They're the expert. Allow the kids to ask questions, like I talked about in my example at the grocery store, and offer your help only if it is that you think it's needed. Don't be surprised or offended if the person would rather do it themselves. If you're uncertain how to do it, or how to assist, then ask. So here's another example for you all to think about. Grocery store, I don't know, it's lunchtime, I'm thinking food, right? So you see someone maybe in a wheelchair going to their car. You can do one of three things. One is you can rush to their assistance and really know that they need your help desperately, because obviously they do, they're in a wheelchair. Two, you can ignore them altogether and pretend they're invisible. Or three, just say, give me a hand there. Well, with my one arm, I'm always inside. Just checking to see if you're awake. But ask them, can I give you a hand? Do you need some help there? And that simple little change in your activity or your behavior, they can say, no, that's okay. I got it, but thanks for the offer. Very kind of you. Or they can say, yes, this grocery bag is about to slip off my lap. I thank you for your help. But that person is empowered to make the decision for themselves. Okay? Don't rush to assistance. Don't ignore, but just say, hey, can I help? That empowers that person. Invisible disabilities could be like a learning disability with thinking, breathing, chronic pain, environmental sensitivities, and must cope with disbelief, lack of respect or consideration, even among their closest friends. You know, when somebody has a hidden or invisible disability, so often folks can come up and say, well, what's your problem over there? You look good, fine. Are you slow? You look fine. Well, it's almost like you have to really justify yourself more so. Me, I'm out there and, you know, I'm the guy with one arm, you know, my eyelids closed because I can't see. A bit more acceptable. People using wheelchairs. This provides folks freedom to get around. It's not a tragedy. Some can walk short distances, and the chair helps them to conserve energy. I worked with a lot of folks with MS, multiple sclerosis, and that disease slowly diminishes your ability to function, walk, and such. And there's people that I've worked with who said, I'm fighting not to use that wheelchair because then I feel like I'm giving in to the MS. Once they start to use it, like, Daryl, geez, I wish I'd used this long ago because I'm saving up so much energy to do life and enjoy my life rather than struggling just to do the basics. So the etiquette part of that is speak directly to the person. If the conversation lasts more than a few minutes, see if you can sit or kneel down to get at the same level. Because of the videotaping, I'm not able to really fully show you what I'm talking about. But if you come across someone using a chair, you have a conversation, you could do one of three things. You can stand while they're down below, sitting, or you can get down if you're physically able into a catcher's position, like in baseball. And what that does is actually make you at a lower level and having to look up at the person using the chair. Different, where you're kneeling down or maybe on one knee, you're looking up. Or the third option, pull the chair over and get to eye level. But no further away from that person, same distance. You're the same volume, but the dynamics of changing your standing, squatting, or sitting position changes that conversation dramatically. 70 to 90% of all the communication is nonverbal. It's not the words we use, it's how we do it. That body language speaks volumes. So that would be one example of how you can maybe improve your etiquette for folks in talking to folks with chairs. Let's see. Oh, and don't hang or lean on that person's wheelchair. Oh, God, I've had so many people who just, hang on the person's, arm of the chair. Well, you know what? You're invading their space. We all have a certain space or bubble that we want to keep people at a safe distance at. And that changes, that's different for different cultures. Some cultures are really right there in your face. Some are very distant, but just respect it. But certainly don't hang on someone's wheelchair. That's very invasive. Speech disabilities can be caused by traumatic brain injury, genetics, cerebral palsy, muscular dystrophy. And it could be stuttering or aphasia or word confusion. So here, as far as interacting with someone with a speech disability, be patient. Do not try to finish their sentences. I get torqued when my wife, who does not have a disability, tries to finish my sentences. Like, no, give me the respect so I can finish my own sentence And you know what? Sometimes finishing my sentence is different than what I was going to say. I know you intended to speed up the conversation. You only have so much time, so but give that person the respect and dignity. You don't understand? Don't pretend. Say, didn't quite catch that. Because you want to be understood no matter who you are. And then ask the person what's the best way to communicate. Maybe you're writing notes back and forth to each other or typing messages by text, those types of things. The cognitive and learning part, different things here. I'll just kind of skip over that one from time. Think in literal or concrete ways for folks with cognitive or learning. Often people have people-pleasing behaviors. So keep your manner encouraging rather than correcting. Maybe sensitive to tone of voice. Don't rush. Build trust. And let's see. In reading and writing accommodations, offer to read if struggling. And again, ask, in the letter word, ask what tools work best for them so they can succeed. Deafness and hard of hearing, two different things. Deafness is no sound at all. Hard of hearing is not catching everything. Maybe the high pitches are not captured or lower. Too many of us went to too many concerts back in the day and may have a little hearing issue. Just saying. So lesser degree is hard of hearing. Deafness, sign language, the Arizona Relay Service, that's really helpful. 711. And what that does is that if I'm a person who is deaf, then I can type in my order to Pizza Hut. An operator will get that and then communicate it verbally to the person at Pizza Hut to take my order. There is no sidebar conversation. Everything you say to the operator will be translated back to the individual. And you'll have this full PowerPoint available to you. Blindness and vision, same thing. Blindness is totally dark. Vision loss can be a lot of different ways. My 86-year-old mother has age-related macular degeneration, where certain parts of her vision are not clear. It might be like a black hole in the middle, or it could be gray on the outside. She gets shots in her eyes every 8 to 12 weeks. Blood draw. Don't grab the person's cane or arm. Ask what works best for them. Print. Mental health issues can cover a wide range of things. The term mental illness or behavioral health and psychiatric disability are essentially interchangeable. Sorry, but for the purpose of time. So in conclusion, disability is a natural part of living. People with disabilities are not stereotypes. They don't want to be special or courageous. Hello, Daryl, I could never live like that with one arm and one eye. Oh, I could never do that. You're so courageous to be out there in public. Using person first language and entity, about that. And you have the power, people. Everybody here on this call, in the room, on virtual, you have the power to change things. Simple help us all to be effective and empowering our interactions with people with disabilities. Again, 61 million Americans, a million Valley residents. It could be someone you know. Be a barrier buster in your community. If you're not sure how to help, just ask. I only gave you 3 minutes, so I can't take too many questions, but questions, either online or in person. group I've ever. Yes, sir.
A lot about individual behaviors, how we can work with people. I'm curious about environmentally, when you see people succeed and thrive, what kind of environmental factors in the workplace have allowed people that you work with to thrive and succeed?
In the workplace? Yeah, so accommodations is a question in the workplace. Over half of all job accommodations don't cost anything at all. A good part of them cost less than $50. It can be such as, let's say the interior door has been mounted so that you really need to push hard to open that door. And it's much tougher than according to regulations. Your maintenance person can just take that mechanism on top, readjust it, and it becomes easier. Changing schedules or being flexible with schedules for people that might need to shoot up with their insulin. Might be able to take more breaks or breaks at different times. Not to let them off the hook, not to say that there's a lower expectation, not at all. But that's one way an employer can make an accommodation. The key part there is always identify the accommodation that's being requested and how does it relate to the disability. There's a lot of things that employers can't ask about with disability, but in an accommodation request, you can ask certain things. You can change job responsibilities. More and more companies are, in their job descriptions, are saying what needs to be done, not how does it get to be done. So schedule changes, environmental, with door pressures. It could be an office on the first floor if you have a two-story building without an elevator, a lot of different things. Yep. What else? Sure. If you got anything out of it, or it felt like it was a big flaming waste of an hour. Anybody online have anything?
That's all my questions online.
Okay. All right, folks. The afternoon is yours. Go out and make a difference. Thanks.
If you don't have anything, that's in our we really appreciated the ability to succeed was really informative. Our next group of speakers today, we have Special Olympics. Special Olympics is a global movement of people creating a new world of inclusion and community. Welcome, regardless of ability or disability. They help to make the world a better, healthier, and more joyful place for athletes, volunteers, and families as well. In 1962, Eunice Kennedy. Eunice. Kennedy Shriver began a summer day camp at her home in Maryland for children and adults with intellectual disabilities. This to explore their capabilities in a variety of sports and physical activities. The idea quickly took off, and in 1968, the first International Special Olympics took place at Soldier Field in Chicago, Illinois, with 1,000 athletes from the U.S. and Canada competing in track and field and also swimming. So let's give them a really big, warm round of applause. And the mic is all yours now.
Hello? Okay. Hi, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Saul Lugo. I am the Athlete Leadership Coordinator for Special Olympics Arizona. A little bit before we introduce, or I let my athletes introduce themselves, the Athlete Leadership Program for Special Olympics is a program for our athletes that want to be involved more through advocacy and leadership than just sports. So this program really helps train and give opportunities to our athletes to build those leadership skills to help their communities, but also help represent Special Olympics. Because no one wants to talk to me, I'm a nobody, but our athletes, they are the reason that we do what we do. So I'm going to hand it over and let them introduce themselves, and then we'll get started with our presentation.
My name is Terry Wars Young. I'm an athlete. I play for Tempe Hawks. I do basketball and swimming.
What is Special Olympics? Special Olympics Arizona, the 1975 mission statement. The mission statement of Special Olympics Arizona SOAZ is to provide year-round sports training and athlete variety of Olympic sport type. Children and adults with intellectual disabilities, giving them continuing up physical fitness, demonstrate courage, experience joy, and participate in give skills and friendships with their families. The oath. Let me win, but if not win, let me be brave in the attempt.
Participants, 21,461 athletes, partners, and young athletes participated in 2019 traditional and school-based sports. Volunteers and 2,400 day events volunteers given over 1,640 hours of service in 2019. Coaches, more than 1,000 coaches, head of delegations, and chaperones in 2019. We have our fall sports, which I do swimming, and we have bowling and bocce. Winter sports, where I do basketball, they have cheerleading and cross country. Summer sports, we have track and field, lifting, and tennis, and our new sport is e-sport.
Esport is very popular. All of these kids play video games, right? Even our athletes play video games, and a lot of them are very good.
95% of every dollar donated goes directly to special Olympics programs and competitions. These including food, lodging, uniforms, training, and health screenings.
Areas, we have 6 of them. We have River, Mount Peaks, and Coronado. Adult day programs, schools, community-based programs, city
and recreational programs.
How do you participate? Special Olympics training and competition is open to every person at least 8 years of age. There's no maximum age limitation for participating in Special Olympics. SOAG medical and consent forms are good for 3 years. Athletes are to programs delegations closer to their location.
Here we have a couple slides that show how young an athlete can start from the ages of 2 to 7. This is where they work on basic walking, basic fine motor skills, basic socialization, and then they can move up to our under 8 bracket. At 8 years old, individuals can start competing in area competitions within their age range. After 8, they can continue to compete with their age ranges. And the bottom graph shows where they start just with the medical form. They start training and they can move on to area competitions. After area competitions, we can move on to state competitions. After those, you qualify for national competitions. And then from nationals, you can qualify for world games. That is every 4 years. And then there is a summer world games and there's a winter world games. So a lot of different sports that our guys can compete in. Here, just a couple pictures. So we have top left is a unified volleyball team, and a unified team is individuals that have some sort of disability, and our athletes are individuals that don't have a disability, along with athletes that have disabilities. So a real unified team to really promote that inclusion in our society. Top right, we have Terry, our athlete leader here. This was during our open house. She got to meet the governor. The governor was introducing an inclusive bill for healthcare. Bottom left, we have a basketball competition. In the center, looks like we have Mike with his unified partner playing around the golf. And then bottom right, we have what looks to be a traditional team for softball. And when I say traditional, I mean pure athletes with disabilities.
In this, the help of over 1,000 volunteers and the plan. Every practice, events, and competitions across
Class A volunteers are people that can have close contact with Special Olympics Arizona athletes and is responsible for Special Olympics funds and equipment. Examples, we have coach, chaperone, fundraisers, game management team, and medical. Young adults. Special Olympics Young Adult is a sport and play program for children with or without intellectual disabilities ages 2 to 7 years old. Young athletes include basic sport skills like running, kicking, and throwing.
Unified Champion Schools. With sports as the foundation, Special Olympics Unified Champion Schools is a strategy that offers a unique combination of sports, education, and leadership activities to training to create sports, classrooms, and school climates of acceptance and inclusion. Unifies champion schools, 150,000 athletes reach statewide. Components of Unified Champion Schools. 1. Unified sports. 2. Inclusive youth leadership. 3. whole school engagement for health.
SOAZ and AIA Unified Sports is inclusion and repetition of Special Olympics athletes and their high school campus. Unified Sport athletes and partners join a traditional school sports experience with opportunities to compete, represent their school, and earn school letters in sports.
Unified Sports. Dedication is promoting special inclusions throughout shared sports, training and competition. Experience Unified Sports, join people with and without intellectual disability on the same team. If it was inspired by simple principle, training together and playing together is a quick path to friendship and 1,921 participating in Unified Sports.
Health screening, healthy athlete program and health screening offered to athletes. Health descriptions, we have health promotion, healthy hearing, fitted feet, fun fitness, special smiles, med best, open eyes, and sports. Psychology.
State Leadership Council. State Leadership Council is a group of athletes who meet to discuss important Special Olympics topic, make recommendations to the state county program. Wants to learn, practice, and special health information to athletes and the community to create healthier environment and lifestyle for our athletes and communities, also promoting inclusive healthcare.
This slide is just a slide for anyone looking for volunteer opportunities. Games like this truly takes a village. Our events are very massive at times, so volunteers are always needed. We do have programs, we have companies, we have schools that come out as groups to volunteer at our games. So if you are looking for any volunteer opportunities, I have a card on me. You can reach out to me or Heather. She is our volunteer coordinator. She would be able to be the best. She'd be able to give you the best answers as far as events and opportunities for volunteering. That is our presentation. Does anybody have any questions for myself or for our athlete leaders, Mike or Terry? Any questions? Yes.
Being a unified partner, is that something, because we have an athletics program here, is that something our college could explore how to support you all?
It can, but I believe, and if you reach out to, I can give you a card and we can discuss it further. But I believe a unified program would be more of a permanent program. It wouldn't be necessarily a one-off program, but we do have volunteer programs that are a little bit more one-off, and we do have unified champion schools. Those are recognized through ESPN. These are schools that offer unified programs, and they get recognized as a unified school through ESPN. They get a giant banner also and a giant party. It's a lot of fun. We're always looking for schools to join us in this inclusive revolution, as we like to say.
Terry and Mike,
is to compete with, and it's a lot of fun.
Which like it's competing with our friends and other teammates and new partners. I'm on the unified team, so we get a lot of new partners. And it's cool because some of them stay the whole year with you. Like my basketball partners, they go every year with us.
So I actually got a chance to work with the Special Olympics team down in Australia. I got a chance to train them. It was a basketball team. It was co-ed, and it was one of the best experiences that I have ever had. So my question to Mike and Terry is, what are some of the things that you learned while competing in the Special Olympics?
I learned to be a good sport about even when you win, it's cool, but when you it's much better. It's okay to lose. Some people think winning is everything, but not.
Mine is I learned how to do a kick turn. It's for swimming, and those are very hard. Basketball, I already knew how to play.
You guys learn leadership skills, right? Okay, yeah, that too. Not just sports.
The leadership skills and speaking in front of.
I use leadership skills. I have stage fright, so I'm learning how to speak in public.
Any other questions?
So can you guys give us an example of like one of the really competitive games that you had before, and what were the challenges and like in those games?
It was at golf. We were playing against a really good player, and the challenges were that the guy was hitting it straight, I was hitting it crooked. So the tip was to um, hit it. If you go straight, that's good, but to the house. So and then that's when if you hit a house, that's when you won.
Mine was basketball. We played against Chandler and Scottsdale. We had never won against them. This year we won gold in basketball state games competition.
You want to tell them what you won those from? And then probably
My gold medal is from basketball. My silver medal is from doing the backstroke and the freestyle, 50 meters.
any other questions? So if anybody's interested in events, volunteering again, that is Heather. But our events are also online. If you ever feel like just coming out and checking out an event, they're usually online. We have our large fall games, which is our state competitions for swimming, softball, and bocce, and golf. So that'll be coming the 21st of October. It'll be that Friday and Saturday where our athletes will be competing for kind of state positions.
I'm Josh too, so I challenge you all to swimming.
All right, I think we're good. I think we're done. Good job, guys. Grab them for you. I think it's in my bag, right?
Just water.
Advice.